Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make a pumpkin cheesecake, and this is what it looks like. This cheesecake has 3 layers. On the bottom we have a ginger flavored graham cracker crust. Top that with a pumpkin flavored cream cheese filling, and then we're going to cover that with vanilla flavored sour cream topping. So the first thing that you will need to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need an 8-inch, that's 20 centimeter springform pan, and it comes in 2 pieces. You just lock that down, and then there's a clip here. Close. And you know, the reason I'm doing it in a springform pan is that way when it's baked, we can just unhook the sides, and then you have just the bottom plate. It makes it so much easier. So what I'm going to do is you can either butter your pan or you can spray it with one of those nonstick sprays. I've just melted some butter, and then I'm using a pastry brush and just brush the bottom and the sides. And then as you can see here, what I've done is put my pan on a larger baking sheet. One, because it's just easier to transport it in and out of the oven. And 2, if your springform pan does leak a little, then it doesn't go on the bottom of your oven, which nobody wants. It'll go on your baking sheet. Okay, so there we go. So for our graham cracker crust, I'm actually just making it by hand. And so in a bowl, I have 1 cup, which is 100 grams of graham cracker crumbs. Now you can just buy graham cracker crumbs, but you know, I don't know why that is, but I don't think they taste as good as when you actually take graham crackers and then crush them. So for a cup, 100 grams of graham cracker crumbs, you will need 6½ of these graham crackers. Now, how I crush them, I just a plastic bag. I put them in there, and then I just take a rolling pin. You can take any other thing, and I just bang until you get crumbs. The other way you could do this, and you could actually make the whole crust, is to use your food processor and just put your graham crackers in there, or process them. So either way you want to do it. And then, like I said, we're going to have a ginger flavored graham cracker crust. I just love this with the pumpkin. So I have a 1/2 cup, 50 grams of crushed ginger cookies. Now you can actually, today I'm just using store-bought. Make it really easy. But if you have some homemade ginger cookies, then by all means just crush those. And if you say, I don't want ginger flavored, then just add, instead of the crushed ginger cookies, just add another 1/2 cup, 50 grams of graham cracker crumbs. And then I like to sweeten my crust just a little, so I'm adding 1 tablespoon, 15 grams of granulated white sugar. If you kind of say, no, I don't want that, you don't want any sweetness, then just leave out the sugar. And then you will need, it's kind of hard to know with the graham cracker crust how much melted butter to add, because a lot of it depends on how fresh your graham crackers and your ginger cookies are. So I'm going to say I would melt like 5 tablespoons, 70 grams of butter. But you may need between 4 and 5, which is somewhere between 55 and 70 grams. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to add it. I'm going to try to eyeball, say, 4. And you just want to moisten all the crumbs. That's how much butter you need. So it looks like I'm going to need a little more. I think I'm going to need all of it today. Now there are 2 ways to set a graham cracker crust. One, we're going to press our crumbs into the bottom of our pan. Now you could just put it into the refrigerator and chill it for maybe 10 minutes. But since we have the oven on to bake our cheesecake, I'm just going to put it in the oven. And I find in the oven it sets a little more firm than if I do it in the refrigerator. But again, either way. So I'm just going to put that And then I'm just using my fingers. You could use the back of a spoon. I'm just pressing them onto the bottom because I want to have that 3 distinct layers to my cheesecake. I think visually this is a really pretty fall looking cake. Okay, so that looks good. Pressed it firmly and just evening it out. So now, a few things I forgot to say. One, if you don't want to use or can't find graham crackers, you can use crushed digestive biscuits. Very good too. Or I do have a video and a recipe to make your own graham cracker, and then you could use that for crumbs. So you can either go to the YouTube channel or the website and find the recipe for that. So now, to bake. I'm going to bake this until it's firm and slightly a little darker in color. So I'm going to say about 8 minutes, and that should do it to set it. Okay, so our graham cracker crust is done. As you can see, it's just darkened up just a bit, so that's the way you want it. So put your baking sheet on a wire rack. We're going to let that cool, and now we're going to make our pumpkin cheesecake filling. So I'm going to do it. If you have an electric stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer. Really, you know, you could make it by hand. The first thing I'm going to do, I have in this bowl 2/3 of a cup, which is 145 grams of light brown sugar. Now, if you're not weighing your brown sugar, which of course I do recommend, then what you want to do is kind of pat it when you're measuring it out into your measuring cup. Kind of pat it down because you know you need to pack it down to get the full 2/3 of a cup. And then we're going to flavor our pumpkin cheesecake because you know what? Pumpkin puree, I mean, it's kind of got an earthy flavor, but it doesn't really have that much flavor. But we all kind of associate pumpkin with, you know, the spices. So you will need a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, and an 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves, and an 1/8 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. And then I'm also adding a 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Now, I know like some people don't like cloves. I do, but if you don't, you can leave that out. So you can kind of vary on your spices. If you kind of said, I just like the flavor of the pumpkin, then you could leave out all the spices. Never tried that, but you could. So just mix all that together. That's good. And then, of course, we need cream cheese. You will need 1 pound, which is 16 ounces, 450 grams, which is, carry that on even further, 2 8-ounce, the packages they come in, of cream cheese, full fat, and have it at room temperature. Now what we're going to do first is beat this, because you know it's in a big lump here. We're going to beat it just on low speed until it's nice and smooth. The thing about cheesecake batter, you don't want to put this on high speed. We don't want to whip a lot of air into our cheesecake batter. So always keep it, you know, on maybe 2nd speed, in around there. So I'm just going to beat it until it's smooth. Okay, that looks good. Now when you're doing this, you're going to have to stop your mixer quite a few times because cream cheese is so like sticky, I guess you'd call it. And it sticks to your paddle and you have to keep scraping it down. So now we're going to add that sugar mixture and put that in there. And then I like to add a little bit, 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. That's just for flavoring, so you could leave it out. So now again, I'm going to beat this on low speed until everything's just mixed together. Okay, again, you're going to have to stop, scrape down your bowl quite a few times, and the bottom and the sides. And now what we're going to do is add 3 large eggs. That's 150 grams of eggs. Have your eggs at room temperature. I'm going to add one, beat it in again at low speed, then another one, and then another one. Okay, so I'm just going to scrape sides and bottom, and then I'm going to add in my last egg. Okay, beat that in. Okay, and then our last ingredient, of course, is pumpkin puree. You want to buy, if you're buying it, you want to buy pure pumpkin puree and no spices added. You want 1 cup, which is 240 grams of that, and then I'm just going to add that in. Now, if you can make your own pumpkin puree from pumpkins. If you go to the website, I do have in the head note instructions on how to do that. But you know what? If you can find the canned stuff, I find it just as good. So I'm going to be a little lazy, and that's what I've used. So I'm just going to beat that in on low speed. Okay, and that's our batter. You know, cheesecake batters are they're not difficult to make. A little time consuming because of that cream cheese, but hey, I'm just going to give this a quick stir. So that's good. So now, sometimes you bake cheesecakes in a water bath because, you know, there's a tendency for cheesecakes sometimes to crack. And a lot of time the moisture, but, you know, the big reason that your cheesecake cracks is it's overbaked. And I know it can be a little difficult to know. You have to almost take it out when you think, no, it's not done, but it is done. So we'll talk about that. But so instead of a water bath, because if I can get away with not doing that, I try because it's kind of fussy. What I'm going to do is just put a pan of hot water. And what I've done is, if you can see my oven, I've put a rack and then some distance so I can put that on the bottom shelf. So that's what you want to do. And what I've done is I've just got you can use any type of pan and put it on a baking sheet. It's so much easier to carry in because it is hot. And what I'm going to do is fill my pan about halfway with hot water, and that's going to, create moisture in our oven. And it should prevent your cheesecake, help prevent it from cracking. So I'm just going to put that right now in there, get that started. So, easy enough. And so my pans, I can pick it up. Now what we're going to do is just pour our cheesecake batter top of our crust. Oh, the color of it is just so beautiful. It would be perfect for Thanksgiving table along with your pies. Kind of an alternative to a pie. So now what we're going to do is bake it at, the 350, 180 C for 30 minutes. And then what you're going to do is reduce the temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 165 degrees Celsius, for at 10 minutes. It could be 10, could be up to 20 minutes, but you really want to check it at 10. And what we're looking for is the edges will be set. But that center of your cheesecake is going to look wet. And if you kind of shake your pan, it is going to jiggle a bit in the center. So I know it kind of looks, you kind of think, oh, should I take it out? Yes, if you want it still wet in the center, because that means there's still moisture. If you cook it till like it's all firm and it doesn't shake at all, then that's when you start to have cracking. So, which we don't want. So 30 minutes at this temperature, and then drop it down to 325 Fahrenheit, 165 degrees Celsius for like 10 to 20 minutes. So I've just lowered my oven temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 165 degrees Celsius. So now what I'm going to do is prepare my sour cream topping. So in a bowl, I have 1 cup, 225 grams of full fat sour cream, and you want that at room temperature. Instead of sour cream, you could use creme fraiche. That would be really good as well. And then to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup, which is 50 grams of granulated white sugar. If you don't want it that sweet, you could use less sugar. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. And I'm just going to mix all that together and have that, because as soon as our cheesecake is ready, I'm going to take it out of the oven, and then I'm going to spread this on top. That's why we want it at room temperature. And then we're going to just pop it back into the oven for a few minutes to set it. So I'm just going to leave that. We're going to wait for our cheesecake to be done and come right back. Okay. So our cheesecake is done. It's kind of puffed and set around the outside. But it's hard to see maybe, but it is still wet in the center, and when I shake it, you see it kind of jiggles. That's what you're looking for. So now what I'm going to do right away is pour over that delicious topping. And then with the back of a spoon, or I'm choosing an offset spatula, just spread that out. And then we're going to pop this back into the oven, same temperature, for about 8 minutes, just until it's set. Okay. 8 more minutes. So our pumpkin cheesecake is done. So put your baking sheet on a wire rack. I'm just going to let this cool a few minutes, and then I'm going to loosen the sides of the springform pan. So we will be right back. So now we're going to loosen the sides of the pan. So like I've got a flat edge spatula, you could take a knife, and I'm just going to run it on the inside. And then the reason I'm doing this is, as the cheesecake cools, it will shrink. If we don't loosen the sides, what will happen is you will get some cracks, because it's going to shrink and then it's stuck to the sides of the pan. And we don't want that. So we'll do everything we can not to have our cheesecake crack. So there, just put that like that, and then still hot, so gently, slowly undo your clip. Make sure, and that way you can, if you still sticking, you can, there, okay. That looks good. So now I want my cheesecake to cool slowly. So what I'm going to do is just take a piece of foil and put it over the top like that. and let it cool down to room temperature. And then what I'm going to do is refrigerate this. I can cover it, take the foil, you can just wrap the foil down. And you want to chill your cheesecake overnight, at least overnight. Actually, I find a couple days is really good. And that way, I don't know, the flavors kind of mingle and your crust softens and it's just perfect. So it's a great do ahead. And you can freeze your cheesecake as well, which is great. So I made one a couple days ago. Actually, Rick and I, as you can see, we've already eaten some. It's very good, hard to stop. So what I'm going to do is just show you how to cut this. So take a sharp knife. I like a glass of hot water and then just put it in there. Wipe it off, of course, and then just cut. That way you get a nice clean slice. And chilling it overnight, like I said, or a day or two, really firms it up, and then you get a much nicer slice as well. And then wipe your knife in between cuts and then dip again. But I only need one slice, so there we go. Oh, you know what? I just love the look of that. The 3 different colors, perfect. Now, cracking. I mean, it does happen. So you don't want to throw it out. What you could do, a couple ideas. One, you could just kind of put swirls of whipped cream on top. You could take some halves of toasted pecans and then just do concentric circles of toasted pecans over the top. Or you could chop some, roughly chop some pecans or walnuts and put that over the top and cover it up. Because you know what? Even if you have a little cracking, it's still going to taste fantastic. So just cover it up. And let's try a bit. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's smooth. It's creamy. It's rich. The ginger flavored crust, the filling, the top. I love this cheesecake. I really do. Hard to stop eating it. So, you know, try this. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.